Well, hello, everybody. This is 12th Night, Act 5, Part 3. When we left off in Part 2, we found Violet in really quite a conundrum. She had been told by the priest that she had secretly married Olivia. She had been screamed at by Sir Andrew for beating him up and beating up Sir Toby. And things were not looking good for her. And we were talking about how we needed somebody in particular to enter the scene to resolve these conflicts. And here it is, it's Sebastian. Sebastian finally shows up, and we realize that he is the one that has been doing all of these things. And we're going to see a resolution to all of the problems of the play. So Sebastian enters. Now remember, Sebastian and Viola are twins. Viola is dressed as a man. Her hair is cut short. She has man's clothing. She has a mustache on. So they look very, very similar. So Sebastian comes on the stage, and he's often in a stage production on the opposite side of the stage that Viola is at this time. So he walks in, and everybody looks at Sebastian and goes, "Who's this?" Right? So Sebastian comes in, and he addresses Olivia, and he says, I'm sorry, madam, I have hurt your kinsmen. The kinsmen that he's hurt are Toby and Andrew. But had it been a brother of my blood, I must have done no less with wit and safety. Right? So he's basically saying, I beat them up, but they attacked me. Remember in Act 4, Andrew comes up and attacks Sebastian because he thinks Sebastian is Cesario. So Sebastian is just settling the score here. But then he sees how Olivia is looking at him, and he says, "You throw a strange regard upon me, and by that I do perceive that I have offended you. Pardon me, sweet one, even for the vows that we made each other but so late ago." So he's starting to resolve this. I've hurt your kinsmen, I beat up Toby and Andrew, and I'm the one who married you, right? And the Duke then looks at Sebastian and says, "One face, one voice, one habit, and two persons." He's looking at both of them. A natural perspective that is and is not. Now, Sebastian sees Antonio. "Antonio, my dear Antonio, how the hours have racked and tortured me since I have lost thee." And Antonio looks at Sebastian and says, "Sebastian, are you?" Sebastian says, "Fearest thou that, Antonio? How have you made division of yourself? An apple cleft in two is not more twin than these two creatures. Which is Sebastian?" We have two identical looking people on stage. Olivia looks at both of them and goes, "Most wonderful." In other words, I have two men, two beautiful men. Now Sebastian for the first time notices Cesario or Viola. Now, remember, he hasn't seen her for some time. Shakespeare tells us it's 3 months. And he looks across the stage and he says, "Do I stand there? I never had a brother, nor can there be that deity in my nature of here and everywhere. In other words, I'm not omnipresent. I had a sister whom the blind waves and surges have devoured of charity. What kin are you to me? What countryman, what name, what parentage?" Now, this is funny. Shakespeare is creating all this drama. They look at each other from across this stage. They're not running and hugging immediately. He's sort of building the drama here of this revelation that they finally have found each other. So Viola looks at Sebastian and says, "Of Messalene, Sebastian was my father. Such a Sebastian was my brother too. So went he suited to his watery tomb. If spirits can both assume both form and suit, you come to fright us." So she says, "Maybe you're a ghost." Sebastian says, "I am a spirit indeed, but I am in that dimension grossly clad, which from the womb I did participate. Were you a woman, as the rest goes even, I should my tears let fall upon your cheek and say, thrice welcome, drowned Viola." So in other words, he says, if you're a woman, right, you'd be my sister. Well, we know that she is. She's just disguised. Viola says, "My father had a mole upon his brow," and Sebastian says that, "So had mine, and died that day when Viola from her birth had numbered 13 years. Sebastian says, "Oh, that record is lively in my soul. He finished indeed his mortal act the day my sister made my sister 13 years. So he died on Viola's 13th birthday. If nothing lets to make us both happy both, but this my masculine usurped attire, do not embrace me till each circumstances of place, time, and fortune do cohere and jump, that I am Viola. Okay, so she finally says it, I am Viola. A lot of times she'll rip her mustache off at that point or take her hat off at that point. Which, to confirm, I'll bring you to a captain in this town wherein lie my maiden weeds, by whose gentle help I was preserved to serve this noble count. She points at Orsino. All the occurrence of my fortune since hath been between this lady and this lord, right? Olivia and Orsino. So she says, remember the captain disguised her, and she says, the captain has my clothes. Sebastian looks to Olivia and says, so it comes it, lady, that you have been mistook. But nature to her bias drew in that. You would have been contracted to a maid. You almost married a woman. You tried to marry a woman. Nor were you therein by my life deceived. You are betrothed both to a maid and a man. In other words, you are, right, married to me, but you're also married to my sister. She is your sister-in-law. The Duke's like, oh my gosh, right? What's going on here? Now this makes sense to him. Why he had this attraction to Cesario. Because she was a woman. Be not amazed, right? Noble is his blood. If this be so, as the glass seems true, I shall have share in this most happy wreck. And he says to Violet, notice he still calls her boy because he's so used to it. Boy, thou hast said to me 1,000 times, thou never should have loved a woman like to me. He realizes all the things that she was saying. My father had a daughter, loved a man, right? Were I a woman, I should your lordship. The person I love looks like you and is about as old as you. All these things are coming back to him, and he's starting to understand those things now. And all those sayings I will forever swear, and all those swearings keep true in the soul, as doth that orb continent of fire that serves day from night. Right? I will say all those things again. I really meant them, is what she's saying. The Duke says, give me thy hand, let me see you in your woman's weeds. Let me see you dressed like a woman. Violet says, the captain that did bring me first on shore hath my maiden garments. He, upon some action, is now in durance at Malvolio's suit, a gentleman, a follower of my lady's. So, I'm sorry I rushed that line, but I wanted to get to this. This line here is a little confusing because she basically says that the captain is serving Malvolio and he has her clothes. That seems rather strange. I don't know. We don't know why Shakespeare does this, but basically she says he has my clothes. Olivia interrupts. He shall enlarge him. Fetch Malvolio hither. This might be Shakespeare's way of getting Malvolio back on the stage, I guess. It's a clunky way, though, to do that. But anyway, Malvolio has to show up, too. And yet, at last, now I remember me. They say, poor gentleman, he is much distract. Okay, so she's like, yeah, let's bring Malvolio on. But Malvolio's not well. Remember, he was acting a little crazy, yellow stockings and smiling and coming on to Olivia. And the clown enters with the letter in Fabian. And most extracting frenzy of mine own, from mine remembrance clearly banished his. How does he, sirrah? The clown says, Malvolio's not well. Truly, madam, he holds Beelzebub at stave's end, as well as a man in his case may do. Here he has writ a letter to you. I should have given it to you today morning, but as the madman's epistles are no gospels, so its skills not much when they are delivered. He's like, this isn't that important, right? His letter is not that important. Open it and read it. The clown says, look then, be well edified when the fool delivers the madman. And he reads, by the Lord, madam, how now, art thou mad? No, the clown says, no, madam, but I do read madness, and your ladyship will have it as it ought to be. You must allow vox. I pray thee, read it thy right wits. She says, come on, just read the letter, please. So I do, Madonna. But to read his right wits is to read thus. Therefore, perpend, my princess, and give ear, right? She's basically saying, hey, the clown is saying that, Malvolio is kind of losing it. Because after a while, right, when you are told that you're crazy, you start to believe that maybe you are. So Olivia finally says, just read it, sirrah. Read it. So this is what Malvolio wrote. Fabian reads it. By the Lord, madam, you wrong me, and the world shall know it. Though you have put me into darkness and given your drunken cousin rule over me, yet I have the benefit of my senses as well as your ladyship. I have your own letter that induced me to the semblance I put on, with which I doubt not but to you myself much right, or you much shame. Think of me as you please. I leave my duty little unthought of and speak out of my injury. The madly used Malvolio. Malvolio is basically saying, hey, you have mistreated me. I have your own letter saying that I was supposed to act this way. Of course, we know that that letter was written by Maria and not Malvolio. Olivia says, did he write this? And Clown says, yes, he did. I, madame. The Duke says, and this savors not much distraction. So Olivia wants Malvolio brought in. See him delivered, Fabian. Bring him hither. My lord, so please you, these things further thought on. To me, think of me as a sister, as a wife. One day shall crown the alliance on it, so please you, here at my house at proper cost. In other words, hey, we're going to have an alliance between our two houses. The Duke says, Madam, I am most apt to embrace your offer. And then he looks to Viola. He says, your master quits you, and for your service done him, so much against the metal of your sex, so far beneath your soft and tender breeding, and since you called me master for so long, here is my hand. You shall from this time be your master's mistress. So the Duke basically says, I love you too, and I want to have you as my mistress. I want to marry you. Olivia says, a sister you are she. Now Malvolio enters in. Now Malvolio is in rough shape. His hair, if he has hair, is gone. His toupee is taken off. He looks terrible. He's covered in dirt. He's just completely humiliated. Is this the madman? Asked the Duke. I, my lord, is the same. How now, Malvolio? Madam, Malvolio says, you have done me wrong, notorious wrong. Have I, Malvolio? No. Olivia doesn't know anything about this subplot. Look at what Malvolio says. Lady, you have, pray you, peruse that letter. Remember, he kept the letter that he found. You must not now deny it is your hand. Write from it, if you can, in hand or phrase. Say it is not your seal, nor your invention. You can say none of this. Well, grant it then, and tell me in the modesty of honor why you gave me such clear lights of favor. Right? Why did you make me think that you were in love with me? Bade me to come smiling and cross-gartered to you, to put on yellow stockings and to frown upon Sir Toby and the lighter people. He's asking, why did you have me do all these things? And then I did these things and acting this in an obedient hope. Why have you suffered me to be imprisoned, kept in the dark house, visited by the priest, and made the most notorious geck and gull that ever invention played on it? Tell me why. Malvolio's like, why did you do this to me? I thought I was such one of your trusted servants. Olivia looks at the letter, and she recognizes it right away, that this is not a letter that she wrote. Alas, Malvolio, this is not my writing. Though I confess, much like the character, but out of question, 'tis Maria's hand. Aha! And now I do bethink me, it was she that first told me thou wast mad, then camest in smiling, and in such forms which herein was presupposed upon thee in the letter. Now I know why you did this, Malvolio. It says this in the letter. Pray thee, be content. This practice hath most shrewdlessly passed upon thee. But when we know the grounds and authors of it, thou shalt be the plaintiff and judge of thine own cause. Basically, she says, you were tricked. None of this was true. But you will be able to judge the people. Well, where are Maria and where's Toby? We'll see. Fabian interrupts. Good madam, let me hear me speak, and let no quarrel nor brawl to come taint the condition of this present hour. In other words, hey, I want to tell you what happened, but things are so nice right now. I mean, you're married to Sebastian, and the Duke wants to marry Viola, and everybody's so happy. Let's not let this taint things, which I have wondered at. In hope it shall not. Most freely I confess, myself and Toby set this device upon Malvolio here, upon which some stubborn and uncourteous parts we had conceived against him. This wasn't very nice, but yeah, we did it. Maria writ the letter at Sir Toby's great importance, right? Maria wrote the letter because she did it for Sir Toby. In recompense, in return, right? Wherefore he hath married her. What? Remember, we said there was something going on between Toby and Maria. How with a sportful malice it was followed may rather pluck on laughter than revenge, if that the injuries be justly weighed, that both sides have passed. In other words, you know what? Yes, he was mistreated, but he mistreated Toby. Which, if we talk about the theme of excess here, Toby goes much farther than Malvolio does. Olivia's only response is, "Alas, poor fool, how they have baffled thee." And she's interrupted by the clown. "Why, some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrown upon them." This is one of the lines from the letter, remember? "I was one, sir, in this interlude, one Sir Topaz, sir. But that's all one, by the Lord, fool, I am not mad. But do you remember, madam, why laugh you at such a barren rascal, and you smile not and he's gagged?" And thus the whirligig of time brings in his revenges. Right? So Feste says, I participated in this. You were talking to me. Right? But he also reminds Malvolio of what we see in Act 1. "But do you remember, madam, why you laugh at such a barren rascal and you smile not and he's gagged?" That line right there, Malvolio says that to Feste. And Feste says, guess what? What goes around comes around. What goes around comes around. The whirligig of time brings in his revenges. Malvolio stomps off stage. "I'll be revenged on the whole pack of you." Well, Olivia says he hath been most notoriously abused. Right? Notoriously abused, excuse me. She does feel sorry for Malvolio, but not for very long. The Duke intercedes here. "Pursue him and entreat him to a peace. He hath not told us of the captain yet, and when that is known and golden time convinced, a solemn combination shall be made between our dear souls. Meantime, sweet sister, we will not part from hence. Cesario, come, for so you shall be, while you are a man, but when in other habits you are seen, Orsino's mistress and his fancy's queen." Now, this is really where the play ends, with 3 weddings. Toby and Maria are married. Well, it sounds like that's going to be filled with dysfunction. Sebastian and Olivia are married, and it sounds like they're going to stay married. You know, Olivia marries Sebastian because he looks like Cesario, but he's not Cesario. So that wedding seems like it's going to be, that marriage, excuse me, is going to be kind of strange. The Duke, though, right, and Viola are going to be married. What's so interesting is that their entire relationship was based on a lie, based on deceit. But in that lie, they really got to know each other, and we see Viola demonstrating that agape love. So we wonder, right? This is of the 3 marriages, this might be the most stable. Well, the play ends with Feste singing. And it's a song that I've heard him sing on the stage by himself sometimes. Sometimes the entire cast will sing it. And it basically, I think, talks about life, right? If we go through it. "When I was a tiny little boy with a hey-ho, the wind and the rain, a foolish thing was but a toy when I was a child. But when I came to man's estate with a hey-ho, right, the wind and the rain, 'gainst knaves and thieves men shut their gate, for the rain it raineth every day. But when I came alas to wife, with a hey-ho, the wind and the rain, by staggering could I never thrive, for the rain it raineth every day." Right? So when I was a boy, when I became a man, right, when I got married, but when I came into my beds, with a hey-ho, the wind and the rain, with tosspots still had drunken heads, for the rain it raineth every day. To my beds, the latter part of life. Bedridden, possibly. "A great while ago the world begun, with a hey-ho, the wind and the rain. But that's all one, our play is done, and I will strive to please you every day." And Twelfth Night ends with Feste on stage singing, and with 3 weddings. But as we're going to talk about in later videos, it's a paradox. It seems like it's a happy ending, but is it really a happy ending? There's more to say here. Not just with these marriages, and whether or not these marriages are really happy, but we're going to be talking about, what about Antonio? What about Malvolio? Right? What about these other characters? Is it really a happy ending? Or is it, again, Shakespeare clothing tragedy in comedy?